OpenAI launches Agentic Commerce Protocol in ChatGPT. Every purchase decision now happens inside the model window itself. Merchants like Etsy gain instant reach to hundreds of millions without building their own agents. The open protocol looks generous until you notice settlement still clears through a single set of keys. This forces Stripe to either lower its per-transaction fees or watch volume migrate to any fork that undercuts the rate. Watch mid-market sellers test the first alternative endpoint by next summer. OpenAI models and codecs now on Oracle Cloud. Universal credits already sitting in Oracle accounts now cover frontier inference without fresh paperwork. Enterprises skip the usual cloud procurement dance. The move quietly shifts inference spend toward Oracle's existing compliance stack. Azure must match the credit flexibility or concede ground in regulated sectors. Smaller providers without similar credit programs now face higher effective costs when bidding against bundled OCI deals. Watch what happens to per-token margins when those contracts add strict latency SLAs that force dedicated capacity. OpenAI acquires AI agent startup Ona. Long-running agent sessions now inherit orchestration tools built for days-long execution instead of single turns. The acquisition bakes persistence into the core platform. Watch retention metrics on current agent platforms once customers test the integrated alternative. Rivals must either license similar capabilities or lose ground on enterprise pilots that require uninterrupted agent workflows. Anthropic faces pressure to accelerate its own orchestration roadmap or risk seeding the multi-day use cases entirely within 18 months. Anthropic files S1 for near $1 trillion IPO. Confidential filing at this scale locks the valuation before the next training cycle reveals true cost curves. Public markets get a clear look at the burn rate tied to cluster expansion. The real pressure lands on governance terms that let early backers retain influence after the listing. Talent shifts follow quickly. OpenAI must now decide whether to accelerate its own IPO timeline or watch key talent chase liquid equity at the new public entity. Senate Banking Committee holds AI innovation hearing. Export rules on advanced chips are already moving faster than any bill the committee could pass. The hearing instead surfaces how quickly domestic foundries must scale to replace restricted shipments. NVIDIA now faces a hard choice between licensing older architectures to allies or absorbing the full cost of Arizona production ramps. Either path compresses gross margins on inference hardware by at least 8 points inside 18 months. China tests AI robot cleaners in homes. Beijing and Shenzhen homes are feeding petabyte-scale video of daily routines into training loops that Western labs cannot replicate under current privacy rules. The resulting models will handle edge cases like laundry folding long before any U.S. competitor clears regulatory review. That data advantage forces Figure and Agility to either acquire Chinese vision startups or accept a permanent lag in consumer deployments. Expect U.S. firms to strike data partnerships or fall behind on household tasks by mid-2026. Supabase raises $500 million for AI developer tools. Valuation headlines miss the clause that lets GIC influence which Postgres extensions reach the open core first. With the fresh capital, Supabase can now ship production-ready PG vector improvements 6 months ahead of any community fork. That timing locks developers building RAG apps into their hosted indexes before competitors finish their own managed offerings. The gap will show up first in query latency benchmarks that teams actually cite in production reviews. Firebase will have to match the extension velocity or watch mid-market migrations accelerate through next year. Suno secures $400 million Series D for AI music. Copyright exposure still blocks the biggest sync deals with brands and studios. The new round buys time to settle with major labels before those contracts move to competitors. The settlement terms will determine whether Suno can embed full catalog tracks or stays limited to synthetic stems. Universal and Sony now face a clock. Either license their catalogs to Suno or watch independent artists route around traditional royalty flows entirely. Expect one major label to announce a licensing partnership inside 12 months. Generalist AI raises $400 million for robotics agents. Robots that learn from video rather than code will flip the economics of last-mile logistics. One model handling both navigation and delicate manipulation cuts integration costs by half. This forces Figure to either match the data scale or retreat to research contracts. Expect pilot programs in 2 major retailers by Q2 next year, with full rollout decisions riding on whether error rates drop below 2%. The valuation premium assumes that flywheel spins without regulatory friction on job displacement. Flourish lands $500 million for brain-inspired AI. Models built on cortical columns promise lower energy per token than attention layers ever delivered. The catch surfaces when mapping those columns onto GPUs that were never designed for sparse spiking. This pushes OpenAI to either license the architecture or double down on custom silicon within the next product cycle. Early benchmarks suggest a 3x reduction in training flops, but only if the biological priors survive contact with noise. Retail investors chasing the Bezos name are missing the hardware dependency. What OU4's retail investors chasing the Bezos name are missing the hardware dependency. Supermicro announces $7 billion equity raise for AI. AI server margins have already peaked, and this volume only hastens the slide. Supply gluts from the CapEx will compress margins for every GPU reseller starting Q3. Enterprise buyers gain leverage on custom configurations because inventory finally exists. This forces Dell to accelerate its own financing options or watch mid-market deals migrate to direct Asian sourcing. The 20% drop prices in the dilution risk but ignores how faster server availability changes deployment timelines for the largest cloud operators. NSPM 11 directs AI acceleration for national security. Security clearances create the actual moat here, not the technology itself. Clearance bottlenecks will determine winners long before any model performance does. This forces Google to spin up a classified division or lose DoD workloads to Palantir within 18 months. Smaller research groups without facility approvals get locked out of the largest budgets entirely. The memo's real effect surfaces in how quickly existing vendors must add air-gapped inference options to stay eligible for the next round of task orders.